Hi everybody, it's David from Doctors of Running. Today we have a fun episode. We're going to be doing another head-to-head battle with two racing shoes this time. And so this time we're going to be taking a look at the Adidas Takumi Sen 8 as well as the Nike Vaporfly Next Percent 2. Now they're a little bit of different shoes. This is a shoe that a lot of people have been reaching for the marathon distance. However, the Nike Vaporfly Next Percent 2 has also been used in a wide range of 5K to 10K racing as well. And we've seen it on the track too, so I figured why not make a video. The Adidas Takumi Sen 8 is a 5K to 10K specific racer with the intentions of potentially going up to the half marathon. I think it could go the full marathon depending on the individual. But let's start off with a couple of specs here. So the Adidas Takumi Sen 8, we're looking at 6.8 ounces, men's size 9, 33 millimeters of stack in the heel with 27 millimeters of stack through the forefoot. We're looking at a 6 millimeter drop there, relatively lightweight, really cushioned for the weight, and with the goal of being a 5K, 10K shoe. Does feature the Light Strike Pro midsole throughout the full length and the energy rods as well. The Nike Next Percent 2 does come in at 6.9 ounces, men's size 9, 40 millimeters of stack through the heel, as well as 32 millimeters of stack through the forefoot. So we're looking at an 8 millimeter drop through the Nike Vaporfly Next Percent 2. One thing I find really interesting about this is the Takumi Sen 8, it does not use carbon infused rods, it actually uses glass fiber rods. A little bit more flexible, but it's still pretty rigid overall. The Nike Next Percent 2 does use the carbon fiber plate that you've seen in a lot of the super shoes out there. Now this is me hypothetically speaking, but I think it's really interesting to see the diversification between the materials throughout the midsole of what they use for plate design. Because if you look at the Nike Dragonfly, that shoe utilizes a Pebax plate. You look at the Nike Zoom Victory, carbon plate. You look at the Takumi Sen, glass fiber. You look at the Adios Pro 2, carbon fiber. Now I think it's interesting to think about because it's almost like the more force you put into the ground, you're already going to be at a fast cadence, and you might actually get a little bit more rebound by having some of that flexibility there. So when I see that they choose to have a Pebax plate in the Dragonfly, glass fiber through the Takumi Sen, maybe you get some more responsiveness out of a slightly more flexible material, whereas in the long distance racing, maybe you do want a little bit more rigidity through the carbon fiber plate, such as the Vaporfly Next Percent or the Adios Pro 2 or RC Elite 2 or Deviate Nitro Elite, all of the different racing shoes out there. But this is going to be a comparison video between these two specifically. So as far as marketing goes, yes, this is going to be your 5K to half marathon shoe. This is going to be really anything you want, 5K to marathon. Where I find the difference between them is in the ride. It's in the responsiveness. And I've taken these through a multitude of different workouts now at this point. I mean, this has had as long of runs as 20 miles for me. This guy has probably been up to about 15 probably for me. I want to say 15 miles. In this last week, I did a workout in both of these shoes, so they're both fresh in my brain, and I just wanted to express some thoughts there. So I was on the track the other day. This was a Wednesday workout. Did 16 by 400, 70-second quarters, kind of cutting down over the end of them. So it was like 69 or whatever the last couple, and then 65 for the final one. And so this is something that I've really loved to use on the track or faster road intervals. The Vaporfly Next Percent on Friday, so this would have been 2 days later. I did a 4-mile tempo in these guys, 5:13 mile average with some hill repeats afterwards. I've used this on the track as well. I've taken it on long efforts. And the difference really is in the ride. And so first thing I noticed as far as midsole composition, the Light Strike Pro actually feels a little bit softer in durometer. Like if I'm pressing here and I go through and I really push down, this has a little bit more suspensiveness to it than the Zoom X, at least as far as my own subjective feeling there. However, there's less of it. And so you're a little bit lower, you're a little bit closer to the ground. And what I also notice is the traction on the Takumi Sen 8 is a little bit better for me. So even though there's that exposed midsole through the midfoot right here, you still have this panel up here. But what's interesting is when you pronate into the medial aspect there on that great toe. So if I'm coming here, rolling in, and I'm crashing off that great toe and then resupinating and exploding off the forefoot, there is a lot of continental traction right here, and you can feel that. You feel connected to the ground. You feel like you're doing something when you push into the ground and come off of it, which is why I really like it for the track or faster road intervals. I don't really get that in the Vaporfly. Yes, it's bouncy. Yes, it's responsive. Don't mind all the dirt. I take everything off-roading. I'm a heathen. That's a different point aside. Anyways, these guys have done quite well for me over the longer distances. Not that they haven't in short distances. I have run a sub 20 effort in these for 4 miles before, and they're still plenty responsive. But the difference in the ride is that it relies a little bit more on that geometry. Yes, you get some bounciness from that Zoom X, but you kind of crash down, you roll in, and you just have a smooth toe off through the forefoot. It almost just kind of has a nice little roll with a little bit of a pop at the end. Whereas this guy's almost a little bit more dependent on you loading that shoe and really exploding off the forefoot. So when you're running a 5K or a 10K, you're not on your feet all that long. So if it's someone who's, let's say, I don't know, like maybe you're ranging between a high 14 and a low 16 road 5K, and you're pumping, you're pushing, you're really getting into the ground and exploding off of it. Not that you can't do it with this shoe. I think it's still, they're both great shoes, but you're going to get a little bit more of that popping sensation out of the Takumi Sen 8 just because it's a little bit lower to the ground and there's a little bit more of a flex in those glass fiber rods. So you're going to load, you're going to feel like you're loading, and then you're going to pop off. Whereas here, you get a little bit of a floaty sensation through the forefoot. Yes, you still get that bounce, but you don't get that ground connection quite as well. So if I'm running on the track, I would actually prefer my Takumi Sens. On the road, I think it depends on the runner, and I'm still trying to figure out this decision for myself. If I was doing a road 5K tomorrow, I think I'm going to lean a little bit more towards the Takumi Sen. I do like that responsive feeling and that ground feel I get out of them, even though it's still a 33 millimeter stack through the heel. It's not a minimal shoe by any means, but that little bit of lower stack and connectivity to the ground, I like that feeling, especially when I'm going fast. But if I'm doing something 10K and up, I might actually reach for the Vaporfly. So it's interesting. I don't know. I feel like 5K and down, I'm going to go Takumi. I think you can make a case for 10K. They kind of go back and forth. Obviously, people have run really fast in both at both distances. But it just depends on the runner. I mean, there's more shoe here. Granted, the weight are really comparable. You have 6.9 ounces in the Vaporfly, 6.8 ounces in the Takumi Sen 8. It's negligible. They're the same weight for all I care. It's just a matter of what you want out of this shoe. And so when you load it, I feel like I don't get that poppy, bouncy sensation as much out of the Vaporfly. However, it still feels like you're floating over the ground. It still feels like you have that energy return, that you're not working quite as hard. And I feel like with this Takumi Sen 8, you still get that, but you don't get that quite as much. But you do get a little bit more pop out of the shoe. So you might have to work a little bit harder, but you are running faster. So I don't know. I feel like they kind of wash out in the end. They're both great shoes. Like I said, this still has 33 millimeters of stack, all Light Strike Pro. There's plenty of cushion here for anybody running distances up to half marathon, even a marathon. So I wouldn't hesitate to even potentially consider that as an option going further. But both are amazing shoes. I think if we're going to talk about some differences here in the traction, this definitely feels much more grippy. This is Takumi Sen 8. When you're grabbing the ground and pulling it, regardless of what surface you're on, the Vaporfly does a decent enough job. I don't slide around when it's a little wet out, but I don't exactly feel that grippiness where you're grabbing and pulling. The other is the upper lockdown. I feel like the Takumi Sen 8. Now I'm oversized. This was a pair that Matt had sent me, so he's size 10. I'm 9.5. A little bit long on me, but even so, it's still pretty narrow. So this is a more narrow fit. This one has a little bit more width through the midfoot, but they're both still performance fit. Both still have a lockdown. I'm going more into similarities here. Both have a very, very lightweight mesh upper. They're basically translucent. They both lock down really well, at least for the midfoot and forefoot. I think the heel lockdown is better in the Takumi Sen versus the Nike Next Percent 2. I do have to heel lock these. And the only reason why I have to heel lock the Takumi Sen 8, I think it's just because I'm oversized. So I just make sure I'm really locked in there. But from a sensation standpoint, I do feel connected more to the platform on the Takumi Sen 8 than I do on the Vaporfly Next Percent 2. However, both shoes ride really fun. They're both top shelf racing shoes. And I think it's going to depend on the athlete, on what you decide and what you want. Now, this is an interesting shoe, being the Takumi Sen 8, because it almost feels like a hybrid between that traditional road flat and a super shoe long distance racer. And so if you're gradually transitioning into, say, these super shoes, or maybe they just feel like they're just too much shoe for you, you could probably look into this. If you've liked some of those racers and you want something a little bit more minimal, you could easily take this to the marathon. And I have almost basically 50 miles on these guys, and they are holding up great. So the durability on this Adidas outsole is actually quite surprising. Not so much on the great toe region, but more so on these panels and these real thin outsoles here. I guess I'm wearing it a little bit right here, but otherwise it looks great. The Nike's holding up really well too. I got about 40 miles on these guys, so yeah. I mean, we're looking at two different top shelf racers. I think you get a little bit more pop out of the Takumi Sen, a little bit more ground feel, but you have to load it. If you're just running smoothly and you're keeping a consistent pace, you're going to feel a little bit more fresh in the Vaporfly, most likely. You're going to rely a little bit more on the geometry, the transitions. You're still going to get that bounce from the ZoomX foam. So if I'm looking at half marathon and up, I'm for sure going to go Next Percent over Takumi Sen. For me personally. 10K and down, I got to start making some decisions. I think 5K, I'm probably going Takumi Sen 8. 10K, I might flip a coin before the race. I think they're pretty interchangeable there. So you got a lot of versatility, but for those that do like the lower stack shoes, I think the Takumi Sen 8 is a great introduction into the market. For those that do like the higher stack racing shoes, obviously the Vaporfly has kind of been the unofficial gold standard over the last few years. I think at that point, you're going to start comparing it to other shoes, not necessarily the Takumi Sen 8. But for 5K, 10K distances, it just depends on the runner. So let me know what you think in the comments. If you like this video, please smash that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're here at Doctors of Running. We're trying to get you the best content that we can as far as information about footwear, impairments, anything out there in the world of physical therapy and or running. We're on pretty much every platform. You can check us out at Instagram, but most of our reviews and our content and articles are going to be at www.doctorsofrunning.com. Thanks, guys.